everybody. It is time for Games of the Week. For those of you that don't know, this is where I look ahead to the upcoming week in the NHL and pick out which games I think will be the best and most exciting to watch. So, before we get into it, I just ask that you please subscribe and hit that thumbs up if you haven't yet. It helps the channel an absolute ton and is greatly appreciated. But without any more delay, let's get into the best games in the NHL this week, starting with today. Sunday, March 28th, I have the New York Rangers against the Washington Capitals. This is an afternoon game, but a really big one in the East Division. The Rangers are trying to fight into a playoff spot. The Capitals are fighting for the division lead. So this is a big 2 points on the line for both of these teams, particularly for the Rangers, whose playoff lives are on the line. Afternoon game. I'm going to be streaming it. Should be a lot of fun. Then we also have the Florida Panthers against the Dallas Stars in the Central. This is a big one. Dallas is trying to come from behind and work their way into a playoff spot. They are currently outside looking in. Florida has been a playoff team all year long, but they haven't been playing their best recently. They've struggled a little bit in their last 10 games. So they're going to be looking to get back on track. And I just think that is going to be a very hard-fought, tough game throughout. For both of those teams. So moving on now to Monday the 29th, I have the New York Islanders against the Pittsburgh Penguins. These teams just played yesterday, and the Penguins picked up a huge win there to pull within 2 points of first place in the division. So that is a huge matchup for the Isles to try and get some revenge and at least split that series. And if the Isles do win, they'll have an opportunity to maybe move back into first place in the East. So big points there in a huge East matchup. The Oilers and the Maple Leafs. This is a big one as Toronto currently leads the North Division. Edmonton is in third, but just 3 points behind. Toronto just beat the Oilers last night as well. They just played. So that's a huge matchup there. Up in the North Division, and if the Oilers are going to climb the standings and fight for that first place, they're going to have to win games against the Maple Leafs, who they've struggled mightily with this season. But this, I think, might be the last time that the Leafs and Oilers play this year. So Oilers would love to finish that on that season series on a high note. Also in the North Division, we have the Winnipeg Jets and the Calgary Flames. Winnipeg is in second place right now with 44 points, and Calgary is on the outside of the playoffs looking in with 35 points. So, huge 2 points on the line there for both teams. The Jets are trying to fight for the division lead. The Flames are trying to just fight into the playoffs. That's going to be a good one between those two. Tuesday the 30th, we have the Capitals and the Rangers playing again, this time in New York. And again, everything about the first matchup applies to the second one. That's a huge game for both of those teams. Caps fighting for first, Rangers fighting to get into the playoffs. We also, from the Central, have the Columbus Blue Jackets and Tampa Bay Lightning. That's a huge Central Division matchup. Again, Columbus is one of those teams like Dallas on the outside looking in, fighting for their playoff lives, trying to pick up every point that they can get. And for the Tampa Bay Lightning, they are your division leader. They are at 50 points already, and they're trying to maintain that division lead with Carolina right on their heels and Florida not too far behind Carolina. So, big game there. Speaking of Carolina, they play the Chicago Blackhawks, and that's a huge matchup in the Central as well, as Carolina is fighting for first place, just 1 point behind the Lightning. Chicago is fighting for their playoff lives. They are at 37 points in 35 games. Nashville, Columbus, and Dallas are all coming for the Blackhawks' fourth spot. So that's a big one there for Chicago to try and pick up 2 points against a team higher than them in the standings. Wednesday the 31st, only really one game on Wednesday that stands out to me. It's the Maple Leafs and the Jets. These are the top two teams in the North Division fighting for first place, just 2 points separating them. Leafs and Jets is going to be a huge one with a big win on the line between those two teams. So that will be a really exciting game with huge standings implications. Moving on to Thursday, April 1st, it's April Fool's Day, and we have a lot of games to talk about that are going to be great ones on Thursday. We have the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Boston Bruins. Pittsburgh is third in the division right now. Boston is fourth. They are fighting for playoff position. Boston does have games in hand on the Penguins, but they need to win some head-to-head matchups. If the Bruins are going to have any chance to come back and pass the Penguins in the standings, they need to win some head-to-head matchups. So that's a huge game there. The Capitals and the Islanders, the top two teams in the East Division right now, both with 48 points. We don't know where they'll be at come Thursday when they play, but that's going to be a huge game between two of the top teams in the East. Massive matchup there. Columbus and Tampa Bay play again. Everything I said about the first matchup applies to the second one. Huge game, especially for Columbus fighting for their playoff lives. And Carolina and Chicago play again. And everything about the first matchup still applies. Big one, particularly for Chicago, to try and pick up a win against an opponent higher than them in the standings and maintain playoff position. Also, Minnesota plays Vegas that night, and that is a huge one. Minnesota is currently third in the division. Vegas is currently leading the West Division, but only by a point, and that's a huge 2 points on the line between two very good teams that generally play exciting games against each other in the Wild and the Golden Knights. So that is going to be a really fun one. I can't wait to see how that one turns out. Friday, April 2nd, we have the Leafs and the Jets playing again. Obviously, everything about the first matchup applies to the second one. That's huge. Top two teams in the North going at it. Battle of Alberta returns on Friday the 2nd. We have Calgary and Edmonton. Again, Calgary fighting for their playoff lives on the outside right now. Edmonton trying to pull themselves up and compete for first place. It's going to be a huge matchup there. And going to see, anytime those teams play, it's a game of the week. Finally, also on Friday, we have the St. Louis Blues against the Colorado Avalanche. St. Louis has been kind of struggling recently. They've fallen back in the West. They're pretty significantly behind the top three teams. And actually, Arizona is tied with them in points with 37 to try and take that last playoff spot. St. Louis has just played less games, so they are still in fourth as of right now. But St. Louis has got to start winning some games here. And for Colorado, they are 1 point behind Vegas for the division lead. So they are fighting for first place. That is going to be a huge matchup for those two teams. And it should be a great game. And finally, that brings us to Saturday, April 3rd. And that is a huge day in the NHL, as there are tons of great matchups, including the Blues and Avalanche playing each other again. So they play back-to-back. Friday, Saturday. That's going to be a huge little season series set right there for both of those teams. Minnesota and Vegas play again, so obviously everything from the first matchup applies to that second one. That's a huge game, with standings implications on the line near the top of the division. Pittsburgh and Boston play again, so again, that's a huge one, especially for the Bruins, who need some head-to-head wins over the Penguins if they're going to catch them in the standings. And everything from that first matchup still applies. Columbus plays Florida. Again, these Central Division matchups for these teams like Columbus, these teams like Chicago, and even Nashville to an extent, Dallas as well. They are fighting for playoff position. So, these teams are trying to, pull themselves into the fourth spot, or if you're Chicago, keep the fourth spot. These are some huge matchups going on in the Central right now. Columbus and Florida is no different. Dallas and Carolina also play that night. That game is, again, that Central Division, that fourth spot is completely up for grabs between really four different teams going for it. So anytime those teams play, teams fighting for that spot, or teams higher than them in the division, like Dallas playing Carolina, it's a huge chance to pick up 2 points that they could desperately need to get into the playoffs down the line. And finally, on Saturday, we have the Philadelphia Flyers against the New York Islanders. Big East Division matchup. If Philly has any shot of making the playoffs, they need to start winning some games that they're not expected to win. And with the New York Islanders right up there, top 2 in the division, you know, they're a really, really good team. The Flyers probably are not expected to win that game, but the Flyers have got to start stealing some wins here for them to have any shot of making the playoffs. They have been really, really bad for the past, 3-4 weeks now. And they've dropped out of a playoff spot, and the Rangers have even passed them, or not passed them. Philly has a 2-point lead over the Rangers right now, but the Rangers have pretty much caught them in the standings at this point, and they've fallen behind Boston as well by 3 points for that 4th spot. So Philly's got to pick up some big wins if they're going to get back into things, and that would be a huge win for them on Saturday against the Islanders. So a lot of great matchups in the NHL this week. I think more than usual. There were a lot of games this week that were Game of the Week material, without a doubt. So that's going to do it. These are your games of the week. I will be streaming some of these games. I will be watching as many of them as I can. And really, really excited for this coming week in the NHL. It's going to be a really good one. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon merchandise store, donation link, and channel memberships are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.